Connor's gaze lingered on his son, a pang of regret tightening his chest. The funeral director cleared his throat softly, signaling that it was time to proceed. Connor straightened, summoning the composure drilled into him over years of high-pressure situations. He took a steadying breath, ignoring Victoria's tightened grip on his arm. "I'd like to say a few words," he announced, his voice clear and unwavering. The small crowd turned toward him, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line, but she released his arm, stepping back with a graceful tilt of her head. Connor stepped forward, feeling the damp earth shift beneath his dress shoes. "Albert Mitchell was more than a grandfather," he began, his gaze drifting over the assembled faces. "He was the last person who truly believed in me." He paused, emotion threading through his words. "He taught me the value of honesty, courage, and determination. He taught me that even when the world expects you to be a sheep, it's okay to remember you're a wolf." Emma's eyes searched his face, her expression softening for just a moment. Tyler looked away, shoulders hunched, but Connor pressed on, refusing to let the moment slip away. As the ceremony ended and mourners began to disperse, Connor caught sight of Victoria smiling graciously at the funeral director, no trace of annoyance in her expression. She slipped into the role of perfect widow with flawless ease. The mask slipped only when her gaze met Connor's, a brief flash of something cold and calculating before her smile returned. Connor kept his face impassive, giving nothing away. After a moment, Victoria drifted toward their bedroom, leaving behind a delicate trace of her perfume. The door closed gently, and Connor let out a slow breath. He pulled up encrypted files, his fingers moving deftly across the keyboard. He scanned recent financial transactions and cross-referenced accounts. If Victoria thought legal maneuvering and subtle isolation would catch him off guard, she was forgetting who he truly was. As midnight approached, Connor shut down his laptop and sat back in his chair. He listened to the muffled sounds of Victoria's nighttime routine, water running, cabinet doors closing, the soft rustle of sheets. She was meticulous, but so was he. Doubt crept into his mind. What was she hiding? Why the urgency to cut him from family matters? He resolved not to let his guard down, not even for a moment. Down the hall, Emma's light was still on, flickering beneath her door. Tyler's room was silent except for the faint bass line of music. The house felt colder than usual, as if mourning Albert's absence alongside them. Connor stood and walked quietly to the window, gazing out over their moonlit backyard. Whatever Victoria's next move was, he would be ready. Victoria bristled but kept her expression composed. "That's not it, Tyler. It's just, well, these matters can get complicated. We don't want you to be burdened with the legal jargon." Emma rolled her eyes, grabbing her coat. "Let's just go, Mom. We don't want to be late." Victoria pressed a kiss to Tyler's head, more for show than comfort, and swept out the door with Emma in tow. The sound of their heels echoed down the hall, leaving Tyler and Connor alone in the quiet kitchen. Tyler returned his gaze to his phone, but Connor caught the fleeting glance, cautious, curious, and maybe, for the first time in a while, open to him. "You know," Connor said gently, "just because they say you're not included doesn't mean you don't matter." Tyler shrugged, lips pressed in a thin line. "Doesn't really feel that way lately." Connor nodded, watching his son for another moment. People try to keep things safe and simple, but sometimes that's when mistakes happen. Tyler gave a half smile that faded just as quickly as it appeared. As soon as the car pulled out of the driveway, Connor was on his laptop, glancing at the results from his overnight inquiries. The first ping revealed a modification to Albert's will 2 weeks before his death, initiated by Robert Sterling, witnessed by Victoria. Another ping showed that a transfer request for one of Albert's overseas accounts had been opened and flagged by the bank, but never completed. The pattern was clear. Victoria wanted control, and she wasn't waiting for Connor to catch up. Connor closed the laptop with a sense of grim satisfaction. Victoria wanted to play chess. She had no idea she'd started a high-stakes match against a grandmaster. Connor leaned forward, his eyes never leaving Victoria, "And who are those heirs, Victoria?" he asked, his tone calm but edged with challenge. Victoria glanced at Robert Sterling, who looked down at his hands. "Your grandfather made his wishes very clear," she said smoothly. "The main beneficiaries are listed as immediate family: Emma, Tyler, and, well, me." Emma shifted again, her bravado slipping as she glanced at her father. Robert cleared his throat, his voice uncertain. "There are a few trust provisions, Mr. Mitchell. If you'd like, we can go over them now." Connor cut in, his voice quiet but steady. "Yes, I would like that." He slid the manila folder across the table, stopping in front of Robert. "But before we continue, you might want to review some documents I obtained last night. They pertain to recent changes made to my grandfather's accounts, particularly a flagged international transfer and alterations to the will made in this very office with both of you present." Victoria's mask slipped for half a second, eyes widening before her features froze in place. Emma watched her mother, suddenly unsure. Robert, startled, reached for the folder, his hands trembling just slightly. Connor continued, his words bitingly soft. "If we're discussing family, then we're all discussing this. I'd like everything on the record, Robert. No more private conversations. No more selective truths. My grandfather trusted me to ensure his wishes were carried out." The tension in the room became palpable, hanging heavy above the polished conference table. Connor set his gaze on Victoria, seeing the flash of uncertainty behind her confident smile. The game was changing, and now everyone at the table knew it. "And you're all going to sit here and listen," Connor continued, his voice steady and commanding. "No tricks, no cover-ups, no more lies." The room fell silent as Robert Sterling, still pale and visibly shaken, glanced down at the original will in his hands. He swallowed hard, then cleared his throat. "Very well," he said, his voice unsteady. This is the will that was signed and notarized by Mr. Albert Mitchell 3 weeks before his passing. All amendments made after that date are hereby declared invalid under Missouri law due to irregularities discovered and confirmed. I apologize for my earlier actions. I will proceed now." Victoria sat rigid, her knuckles white against the table. Emma looked from her mother to her father, realization dawning in her eyes while shock rendered her speechless. For a brief moment, silence hung like a thick fog over the table. Robert opened the legal document and with trembling hands began to read aloud. "I, Albert Mitchell, being of sound mind and body, hereby bequeath my estate as follows." As his grandfather's wishes were spoken in the quiet of that tense room, a wave of both vindication and sorrow washed over Connor. He knew that from this moment on, nothing would ever be the same for any of them. Tyler shrugged, his expression serious. "You and Mom don't talk unless you have to. She's always tense when you're around. And today, I could tell something big happened even before you said anything." Connor nodded, appreciating his son's honesty. "You're observant, Tyler. Things have been tense between your mother and me for a while. There are some decisions I need to make to protect our family and honor your grandfather's wishes." Tyler looked down, turning the basketball in his hands. "Is it because of what happened with the will?" "It's part of it," Connor said gently. "But some of it started long before today. Sometimes people try to get what they want by hurting others or bending the truth. I won't let that happen to us." A long silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Tyler finally nodded, a new resolve in his eyes. "Okay, Dad, I trust you." Connor smiled, a genuine warmth returning, something he hadn't felt in a long time. "Thanks, son. That means everything to me." Together, they walked into the kitchen, the weight of the day heavy but shared between them. For the first time in years, Connor felt like his family, at least part of it, might actually come through this stronger than before. Emma looked down, twisting her hands nervously in her lap. "I'm sorry, Dad. I really thought we were just doing what Grandpa wanted. Mom told me it was about keeping things simple, not making a scene. I didn't realize—" Her voice trailed off, swallowed by shame. Connor nodded, his expression softening just a little. Emma, I understand how persuasive your mother can be, but when something feels wrong, you need to ask questions. Blind trust can be dangerous, especially when it involves family. Victoria bristled, voice trembling with suppressed emotion. You don't get to stand there and judge me, Connor. You kept secrets too. You never told our children the truth about what you did for a living. You made yourself a stranger in your own home. Connor fixed her with a calm gaze. The difference is, I never used my secrets to hurt my family. I never tried to take what wasn't mine or manipulate my children for my advantage. Victoria's jaw tightened, and for a moment the silence was absolute. Tyler glanced between his parents, then looked down at the basketball in his lap. We're not the perfect family, Victoria, Connor said quietly, but we're still a family. And I'm going to fight for what's right, no matter how uncomfortable that makes things for any of us. Emma wiped her eyes, and even Victoria's armor seemed to falter under the weight of the truth. The rift in their home was exposed now, no more secrets, no more half-truths. For the first time in years, Connor felt hope flicker deep inside him. Perhaps, after everything, there was still a chance this family could rebuild from the ruins of their old life, if they were willing to face what they'd all become. Emma, Connor said gently, you need to decide if you want to keep following your mother's lead, or if you want to start asking your own questions. This is your future too. You're an adult now. It's up to you to choose who you want to be. Emma wiped her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. I want to know everything. I don't want any more secrets. Connor nodded, a touch of relief softening his features. That's all I ask. We face this together, as honestly as possible from now on. He turned to Victoria, voice heavy with finality. The game is over, Victoria. No more hiding, no more manipulation. I'll be contacting our attorney in the morning to begin separating our finances. You'll also need to answer for anything that crosses the line into criminal activity. If you want what's fair, that's all you'll get, and nothing more. Victoria stared at him, defiance flickering in her eyes, only to fade as the truth set in. She'd lost control, and Connor wasn't going to back down. For the first time, real consequences hovered in the air, undeniable and immediate. Tyler squeezed the basketball, thoughtful. I don't want to lose either of you, but I don't want to keep pretending everything's okay when it's not, he said simply. Connor reached out, resting a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. We're not going to pretend anymore, Tyler. We're going to fix what we can, and deal with what we can't, honestly. That's my promise. For the first time since Albert's funeral, the family sat in silence that felt less like a battlefield and more like the first quiet after a storm. Damaged, yes, but not without hope for something better on the horizon. He cross-checked the digital trail of every transfer, every suspicious investment, and every property Victoria had attempted to hide. Phone calls, encrypted messages, and account statements stacked up around him in carefully organized folders. With a steady hand, Connor prepared legal notices and evidence packets for his lawyer, ensuring every detail was accounted for. It was as if each click, each printed document, made his path clearer and his resolve stronger. Downstairs, the house was unusually quiet. Emma stayed in her room, her door closed, trying to process the reality that her own mother had gambled with her future. Tyler, for his part, hovered nearby, offering silent support and an unspoken understanding. They no longer moved through their home as strangers. The tension in the air was punctuated only by the ticking of the kitchen clock and the intermittent sounds of Victoria packing. She made no attempt to speak to either of her children. Pride and fear kept her isolated, stoking the silence with her indignation. By midday, Connor had set up an appointment with the family's attorney. He handed over the files, 3 months of hard-earned truth, and detailed every action Victoria had taken. No more illusions, he said quietly. Let's make it legal, clean, and swift. My children deserve better. So did Albert. The lawyer nodded, already impressed and unsettled by the depth of Connor's preparation. It will be handled, and I'll notify the authorities about the fraudulent activities as well. As Connor left the office, the burden he'd lived with for too long felt lighter. He knew the hardest part was still to come, but for the first time in years, he believed his family had a real chance, not just to survive, but to rebuild. Stronger, and finally free of the corrosive secrets that had nearly destroyed them. Connor nodded, pride flickering in his eyes. That kind of clarity is hard, Tyler, but it's also the only way forward. You've shown a lot of strength, more than most people twice your age. Tyler shrugged, looking down at his hands. I just want us to be real. No more pretending everything's fine. No more secrets, even if it's hard. Connor reached across the desk, laying a steady hand on his son's shoulder. I promise. From now on, honesty comes first. We face everything together, whatever happens next. Tyler met his father's gaze, the unspoken bond between them stronger than ever. Do you think Emma can handle the truth? He asked quietly. Connor sighed. It might take time, but she's tougher than she realizes. Right now, we need to support each other. He smiled slightly. We're a team, you and me, and if Emma wants to join us, she's welcome. A hint of relief crossed Tyler's face. Thanks, Dad. He hesitated, then added, We'll get through this. As a family. Even if it's not the same as before. That's all any of us can ask, Connor said, his voice thick with both hope and resolution. Together, father and son sat in the quiet of the study, the certainty settling over them that no matter how complicated the web of betrayal had been, they would untangle it side by side, with the truth as their guiding light. Connor met her gaze unflinchingly, his eyes colder than she'd ever seen. You didn't just have an affair, Victoria. You enlisted a legal professional to falsify documents and hide assets. You lied to Emma and Tyler. You turned your back on everything this family was supposed to stand for. It's not just a mistake, it's a pattern. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, her bravado was gone, replaced by a vulnerable honesty. I never imagined it would go this far, she whispered. I just wanted out of this marriage, out of feeling invisible. The money, Bradley, all of it. It started small and then it snowballed. I didn't know how to stop. Connor sighed, pushing his coffee away. You always had a choice, Victoria. We both did. I chose to stay and numb myself, hoping things would change on their own. You chose to burn everything to the ground instead of asking for help. She looked down, tears threatening her composure. So what now? Do I just walk away from my life, our family, like none of it mattered? No, Connor said quietly. You face what you've done and accept responsibility. It doesn't mean you stop being their mother, but it does mean you start telling the truth, even when it's ugly, especially then. A long silence settled between them, broken only by the soft clatter of dishes in the background. They were no longer adversaries, nor were they partners. They sat at that small table as the hurt, broken people they'd become, and for the first time, the future was theirs to shape. Painful, uncertain, but finally real. For the first time, her gaze was filled not with anger, but with resignation and an almost desperate longing for redemption. Connor left the cafe with a sense of closure he hadn't expected, yet he carried with him the heaviness of broken trust and the uncertain hope that maybe, just maybe, Victoria would choose the right path now that all her illusions had been shattered. Back outside in the brisk afternoon, Connor pulled in a deep breath. Shadows were stretching across the sidewalks of the city, but inside him, the fog was beginning to lift. There was still the hard work of rebuilding, of helping Emma and Tyler redefine their relationships with both their parents and each other. Legal battles, public revelations, difficult conversations, all still lay ahead. But as he walked away from Morrison's cafe, Connor knew the worst part was over. The secrets were out, the web of lies torn asunder, and the wolf, no longer in sheep's clothing, was free at last to lead his family into the truth, wherever it might take them. Emma turned her laptop so Connor could see the screen. Bradley's firm has a shell company in the Cayman Islands, she explained, voice sharpening with conviction. It's registered under a client's name, but the address links to a P.O. box he's used for years. Every time one of these asset transfers happened, ours, Jennifer Walsh's, a woman named Carla Jensen, the money passed through that account before disappearing into property deals or supposed legal expenses. She clicked on a spreadsheet she'd compiled. He's paying off personal debts with that money, Dad. Mortgage payments, his kids' tuition, credit cards. Roughly $1.6 million funneled through since the beginning of last year. He's hiding it as consulting fees, but the paper trail is sloppy. I found at least 3 flagged transactions that look like deliberate structuring. Connor leaned in, his pride in Emma growing with every detail. That's good work. What about proof? Emma's mouth quirked in a determined half-smile. I downloaded the public records and cross-referenced everything with wire transfer notices. I even traced the IP addresses for some of his secured logins. One of them came from your old laptop's MAC address. Mom must have been using it. I saved everything to a cloud drive, encrypted and time-stamped. Connor nodded, a fierce warmth fighting with his anger. You've done more than most pros would in your position. But remember, this isn't just about justice. It's about protecting yourself too. Bradley is dangerous when he's desperate. Emma's eyes didn't waver. So am I, Dad. For the first time, I know exactly whose side I'm on. He squeezed her hand, the sense of family loyalty between them stronger than ever. Together, they turned toward the evidence and the possibility, finally, of stopping the rot at its source, not just for themselves, but for every family Bradley had tried to destroy. Victoria's voice came through, shaky but determined. Connor, we need to talk. I know everything now. About Bradley, about the money, about the other women. I can give you what you want, all of it. The bank accounts, the passcodes, the property deeds. But I want protection, immunity if that's possible. I want to keep my freedom, and, if there's any way, some dignity with the kids. Connor exchanged a glance with Emma and Tyler. Victoria, if you cooperate fully, help us recover what's been stolen and testify against Bradley, you'll get as much protection as I can offer. But this isn't just my decision anymore. The authorities will get involved. You need to understand that. On the other end, Victoria paused, her breath hitching audibly. I don't care. I just want this to stop. I want to be able to see my children. I want a chance to make things right. Emma's voice was calm but cold as she spoke up. You start by telling the whole truth, Mom. No more lies, no more spin. We'll help you if you're honest, otherwise you're on your own. Tyler added, It's your choice, Mom. You decide what kind of future you want from here. Victoria exhaled, sounding defeated but resolved. Okay, I'll give you everything tonight. I'll send the location of the documents and accounts. Thank you, Connor. And kids. I know I don't deserve it, but thank you anyway. Connor ended the call, a sense of finality settling over them. They had crossed the last threshold. The trap was set, and as the sun set outside the window, the Mitchell family faced an uncertain but honest future, united for the first time in the fight to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Connor felt a twinge of sympathy for the woman he'd once loved, but it was quickly overshadowed by the memories of her betrayal. What did you do? He asked, his voice steady. Victoria looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and resignation. I told him I was done, that I was going to expose everything to the authorities. He laughed, Connor. He laughed and said he'd deny everything, that it would be my word against his, that he had too many influential friends and clients to ever face consequences. Emma's expression hardened. So, you came here, to us. Victoria nodded, pulling a USB drive from her purse and sliding it across the table. Everything is on there. Account numbers, property deeds, emails, text messages, everything. I want him to pay, Connor. I want him to suffer the way he's made me suffer. Tyler leaned forward, his voice cold. And what about us, Mom? What about the way you've made us suffer? Victoria flinched but didn't look away. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, Tyler. I know I've hurt you both deeply. but I'm asking for your help. I'm asking you to use this information to destroy Bradley and, in doing so, maybe find a way to rebuild what I've ruined." Connor picked up the USB drive, feeling its weight in his hand. "We'll use the information, Victoria, but not for revenge, for justice, for our family and for every other family Bradley has hurt." Victoria looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "I understand. I just want this to end." Emma stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "It will end, Mom, but not the way you think. We're going to make sure Bradley faces the consequences of his actions, and we're going to make sure you do too." Tyler nodded in agreement, his expression serious. "We'll help you, Mom, but only if you're honest and transparent from now on. No more lies, no more secrets." Victoria looked up at her children, tears streaming down her face. I promise I'll be honest from now on. I just want a chance to make things right." Connor stood, the USB drive still in his hand. "We'll see, Victoria. We'll see. But for now, let's focus on taking down Bradley. The rest can wait." As they prepared to leave the kitchen, Connor felt a sense of purpose and determination. The wolf pack was united, and their prey was in sight. The hunt was on, and this time, there would be no mercy. "I see now how wrong that was," Victoria admitted, her voice trembling with regret. "I thought I could have it all. Security, excitement, control. But all I did was blow up everything good we ever had. I kept telling myself it was just temporary, that I'd fix it before anyone got hurt. But I was lying to myself as much as I was to all of you." A heavy silence settled over the kitchen. Connor stared at the list in his hand, feeling the burden of every loss, every betrayal, every dream shattered by choices neither of them could take back. "You could have told me," he said at last. "You could have faced whatever we'd become together, instead of alone." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't beg or plead. "I know. I'm sorry. I wish I had. If it matters, I am here now, telling you everything, ready to own what I did." Emma nodded, still reeling but more composed than before. "We can't undo what's been done, Mom, but we can make sure you and Bradley answer for it, and maybe, someday, we can find our way forward from all this." Tyler wiped at his eyes, his voice small but hopeful. "I just want a real family, even if it looks different now. I want us all to stop pretending." Connor looked at his children, then back to Victoria. "That starts tonight," he said gently, "with the truth, and with accountability. No more lies." Victoria nodded slowly, resigned but determined. "No more lies. Whatever happens next, I'll face it. I owe you all at least that." The Mitchell family sat together in uncertain peace, bound not by old illusions, but by the hard-won promise of honesty and the difficult hope that out of this wreckage, something true and lasting might one day grow. Victoria took a shaky breath, her fingers tightening around her phone. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly, "but I'm also tired of living with secrets and shame. I'll do whatever it takes to keep him from hurting anyone else, and to make things right for all of you." Connor nodded, approval clear in his eyes.
"Then let's get to work. We coordinate tonight, rehearse every part. Tomorrow at the fundraiser, we finish what Bradley started, but on our terms. No chaos, no vengeance, just truth and consequences."
Emma's analytical nature kicked in as she leaned across the table. "I'll start organizing the data points and cross-reference everything we have. If we can show a timeline of Bradley's involvement with these women, and evidence of extortion, it'll be hard for him to wriggle out." Tyler's excitement was palpable as he pulled out his tablet. "I'll keep documenting, Dad. Timestamps, recordings, video clips. If anything goes sideways, we'll have a full record for the police, media, whoever needs to see it." Victoria nodded, determination hardening her features. "I'll call him now. I'll make him believe I'm desperate to fix things, that I'll do anything for us to get back on track. I can get him to talk, Connor. I know I can." Connor offered a rare, encouraging smile. "You've got this, Victoria. Just remember everything rides on this being convincing and safe." With the family united, they spent the next hour preparing every detail. Scripts, tech setups, legal protocols. The house felt tense but purposeful. A family no longer fractured but focused, bound together by a determination to see justice done. As Victoria dialed Bradley's number, Connor watched her, the wolf now surrounded by a pack he trusted, ready for the final hunt, ready to reclaim what was theirs, and to end the cycle of secrets once and for all. Sterling sighed in relief. I can do that. I'll start right away. And Connor, I'm sorry. For everything. I let greed and fear cloud my judgment. I should have known better. Connor's voice softened slightly. You can make amends, Robert. Start by doing the right thing for these people, and then testify against Bradley and Victoria when the time comes. I will. I promise. As Connor hung up, he felt a sense of satisfaction. The net was tightening around Bradley, and the lawyer's own greed and arrogance were sealing his fate. Connor started his car, pulling away from the law office and heading toward his own office to prepare for the final phase of the operation. Throughout the day, Connor coordinated with his family, finalizing plans, reviewing evidence, and rehearsing the script for the confrontation. Emma had compiled a comprehensive dossier on Bradley's activities, complete with timestamps, financial records, and witness statements. Tyler had set up a secure recording system, ensuring that every word spoken at the fundraiser would be captured and preserved. Victoria had practiced her role, her performance convincing and heart-wrenching as she pleaded with Bradley to take her back. As the sun began to set, Connor felt a sense of anticipation and determination. The wolf pack was ready, and their prey was unaware of the storm about to descend. Tonight, Bradley Hoffman would learn the true meaning of consequences. Tonight, the Mitchell family would reclaim their dignity and their future. And tonight, the wolf would finally be free. Victoria's voice trembled, just enough to convince him she was vulnerable.
I thought I'd lost you, and everything else I've worked for. I need to know you're being honest with me. I need to know I'm not just another one of your projects.
Bradley slid his hand across the desk, his tone soothing. You're not just a project, Vicky. We're a team. Everything I do is to protect us and our future. But you have to be strong. No more doubts, no more questions. I've taken risks for you because I trust you. In the car, Connor gripped the steering wheel tight, controlling his breathing. Every word was being recorded, every manipulation preserved for later review. Over the earpiece, he heard Tyler murmuring, "He's good, but Mom's doing better." Back in the office, Victoria leaned forward, her voice lowered in a practiced imitation of intimacy. Then prove it, Bradley. Tell me what's really going on with the other women, with the money. I want to be all in. I just need to know everything. Bradley hesitated, but his ego had always been his weakness. Fine, he said, his arrogance returning. Jennifer Walsh, Angela Morris, Sarah Chun, they all owe me. They'd be bankrupt without me. I make sure they get their fair share, and they make sure I get what I deserve. There's no risk I can't manage. Victoria nodded, eyes bright with feigned adoration. And if something happens, if someone tries to expose us? Bradley grinned. It won't happen. I have insurance. Documents, recordings, everything. If any of them, or you, turn on me, I ruin them. Nobody crosses Bradley Hoffman. In the car, Connor gave a grim smile. They finally had all the evidence they needed. At home, Emma hit save on the backup recordings with trembling hands. Tyler whispered, "We got him." Victoria sat back, her face the picture of anxious relief. "Thank you for trusting me, Bradley," she said quietly. "I won't let you down." Connor's voice crackled in her ear, quiet and strong. "You already haven't, Victoria. You already haven't." The final piece was in place. All that remained was the fundraiser. Justice and exposure were only hours away. The wolf was ready to hunt, and the prey was completely unaware. As Victoria drove home, Connor followed at a discreet distance, his mind racing with the evidence they'd gathered. He knew the stakes were high, but the family was united, and their plan was solid. Back at the house, Connor found Emma and Tyler in the command center, their faces illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. "How did it go?" Emma asked, her eyes scanning the data on her laptop. Connor nodded, a grim smile on his lips. "Better than we could have hoped." Bradley admitted to everything. His methods, his other clients, his long-term extortion scheme. It's all on tape. Tyler let out a low whistle. That's going to be devastating when it goes public. Victoria walked in, her expression a mix of relief and determination. "I did it. I got him to admit everything. I just hope it's enough." Connor placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's more than enough, Victoria. Tonight, we end this." Emma looked up from her laptop, her eyes bright with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I've compiled all the evidence into a comprehensive dossier. Financial records, witness statements, recordings, everything we need to bring Bradley down." Tyler nodded, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he finalized the recording setup. "The live stream is ready. We'll have backup footage from multiple sources, just in case." Connor felt a surge of pride in his children's resourcefulness and determination. "Then let's get ready. Tonight we take down Bradley Hoffman and reclaim what's rightfully ours." As they prepared for the fundraiser, the Mitchell family moved with a sense of purpose and unity. They knew the night ahead would be challenging, but they were ready. The wolf pack was ready to hunt, and their prey was about to learn the true meaning of consequences. The storm was gathering, and when it broke, Bradley Hoffman would be swept away in its fury. Connor felt the energy in the room shift as Victoria moved closer to the podium, her proximity and wire ensuring every word Bradley spoke was broadcast and archived. Emma, stationed near the media table, signaled discreetly. Channel 7's investigative reporter was waiting, eyes sharp and camera primed. Bradley's speech rose to its crescendo. "It's time to end corruption in our courts. It's time to demand accountability from everyone entrusted with the well-being of our children, our spouses, our families." The applause was thunderous. Connor pressed the button on his phone, sending the dossier and a succinct, explosive tip to every major media outlet, bar association member, and law enforcement contact present. At the same instant, Tyler triggered the live stream, Bradley's previously recorded confessions, the evidence of his asset-hiding schemes and ongoing extortion, blazed across the ballroom's massive screens, hijacking the candidate's own presentation. The room erupted in chaos. Faces paled. The district attorney pushed to the front, demanding someone kill the feed. Reporters surged forward, hands raised and cameras rolling. Amanda Hoffman stared at her husband in disbelief, then at Victoria, realizing in the flash of a second that everything about her marriage was a lie. Gasps became a collective outcry as Bradley's own words, full of arrogance and callous entitlement, filled every corner of the grand ballroom. As the crowd struggled to make sense of what they saw, Victoria stepped beside the podium and looked Bradley in the eye, her voice low and clear. "It's over." She handed his startled campaign manager the flash drive containing the master evidence set. Connor watched as Bradley's facade crumbled, first with disbelief, then panic, and finally with furious, helpless rage. The great predator had been dragged into the light, devoured by his own hubris, undone by the very family he'd tried to destroy. In the silence that followed, Connor's family gathered near the ballroom's entrance. Emma slipped her hand into her father's. Tyler stood straight and proud. Victoria, shaken but resolute, joined them. As sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the arrival of law enforcement, Connor finally allowed himself a long, cleansing breath. Their hunt was over. The wolf pack had endured betrayal, heartbreak, and fear, and emerged united, stronger, and free. Justice had prevailed, and the Mitchells, for the first time in years, had hope for a future built on honesty and hard-won trust. Victoria pressed play, her hand steady despite the enormity of the moment. Bradley's own voice filled the grand ballroom, amplified by the sudden hush and the dozens of phones recording every word. Jennifer Walsh, Angela Morris, Sarah Chun, They all owe me. They'd be bankrupt without me. I make sure they get their fair share, and they make sure I get what I deserve. There's no risk I can't manage. I have insurance, documents, recordings, everything. If any of them, or you, turn on me, I ruin them. Nobody crosses Bradley Hoffman. The words echoed in the stunned silence, rippling through the crowd like a shock wave. Faces around the room shifted from disbelief to outrage. The district attorney's eyes narrowed, mouth tight with realization. Judge Wells took a step forward, her jaw set with resolve. Bradley's hand shook as he reached for the recording, but security held him at bay. Uncertain now, with so many watching and the evidence so clear. Amanda choked back a sob, her composure crumbling. News cameras swung to capture her reaction, while reporters whispered urgently into their microphones. Connor stood taller, his voice unwavering. Every word, every transfer, every threat, documented. The authorities have already received copies. To the women Bradley targeted, you can come forward now. You'll be protected. The law will do what Bradley never did. Protect families, not destroy them. The room erupted with a surge of noise, shouts, questions, disbelief. Bradley, stripped of his composure and reputation, slumped by the podium, surrounded and exposed. Security, now answering to law enforcement rather than his campaign, guided him gently but firmly away as officers entered the room in response to the unfolding scandal. Emma and Tyler moved to their father's side, the three of them joined by Victoria. Together, the Mitchell family stood in the center of a storm they had weathered, fractured but no longer broken, hurt but no longer helpless. As the ballroom emptied, Connor finally exhaled, his voice low for his children and Victoria alone. "We did it. It's over." "We did," Emma whispered, her eyes shining with fierce relief. Tyler squeezed his father's arm. "Finally." Victoria, tearful but resolute, managed a trembling smile. "Thank you. For not giving up on any of us. Even me." Together, they stepped out of the ballroom, into the aftermath and the promise of an honest future. The hunt was over, the family was free, and justice at last had been served. Reporters hurried forward, cameras and microphones thrust out, eager for statements. The Bar Association president glanced at the evidence in his hands, already making notes, while two city council members exchanged grim looks that spoke of looming investigations and public fallout. Security guided Bradley away from the podium, his shoulders slumped under the weight of his ruin, as murmurs of disbelief and condemnation swept through the room. Judge Wells approached Connor, her voice low but resolute. "Thank you for bringing this to light, Mr. Mitchell. We'll ensure every word is heard in court." Connor nodded, exhaustion flooding him, but he remained steadfast. "Do what's right, Judge Wells. That's all I ask." Emma and Tyler joined him, their faces a mixture of relief and lingering disbelief at the magnitude of what they had just done. Victoria lingered a step behind, holding her breath, as if afraid the last traces of her former life might still shatter. As the ballroom emptied, Connor's family stood together near the exit, no longer the victims of secrets and manipulation, but the architects of justice. Connor met the eyes of his children, and at last offered a smile filled with pride and quiet gratitude. "It's over," Emma whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. Tyler hugged his father. "We did it." Victoria, voice trembling, said, "Thank you. I know it doesn't make up for everything, but thank you for giving me a chance to make things right." Connor held their gazes, the wolf pack finally united. "We survived because we protected each other. That's what family is meant to do." Together, the Mitchells stepped out into the night. Not flawless, not whole, but finally free and ready to rebuild on the foundation of truth. The long winter of betrayal was over, and for the first time, spring felt possible. He leaned against the doorframe, a gentle smile on his face. "Hey, Dad. Channel 7 wants to do a follow-up piece about the fund. They want to know if you'll be available next week." Connor glanced up from the paperwork, studying the lines of confidence in his son's features. Tell them I'll make time. It's important the story doesn't fade away, and that people know there's hope even after all that's lost. Tyler nodded, then hesitated. Mom called. She's meeting with her probation officer this afternoon. She wanted me to tell you she's still cooperating and, well, she's looking for ways to help other women avoid the mistakes she made. Emma met her brother's eyes, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. Bittersweet, but also respectful. She's trying, Dad, Emma said softly. I know it doesn't erase what happened, but... Connor nodded, his voice gentle. I know. I'm glad she's finding her way, even if forgiveness isn't on the table. Accountability and change sometimes have to be enough. The three of them sat in companionable silence for a moment, the great house around them both a reminder of what had been lost and what they still possessed. Outside, the sun slanted through the windows, golden on the polished wood floors. Emma broke the silence. So what now, Dad? What happens to the wolf when there's no more hunt? Connor looked at his children, pride unmistakable in his smile. He learns to protect what matters. He remembers his family, and maybe, just maybe, he gets to be at peace. Together, the Mitchells looked to the future, not the one they'd planned, but one they'd claimed for themselves through truth, resilience, and facing hard realities as a family. And for the first time in years, they allowed themselves a little hope. Connor met her gaze with gentle honesty. It counts for a lot, Victoria. It means the years we shared were real, and I'll always respect that. I'll always care about you, for the sake of the family we built, the memories we made, and for Emma and Tyler. But love isn't enough by itself, not after everything that's happened. Trust has to come before anything else, and that's something we can't just wish back into being. Victoria blinked back tears, holding her head high despite the trembling of her hands. I understand, I truly do. I used to think if I just tried hard enough, if I said the right things, I could go back and fix what I broke. But maybe the best thing I can do is keep moving forward, keep making amends, and be there for Emma and Tyler. Connor offered a small, bittersweet smile. That's all I ask. Be the best version of yourself for them. They deserve it, and so do you. She stood, pausing at the door. Thank you for your honesty, Connor. I hope someday the peace you found extends to all of us. He nodded, watching the woman he'd loved and lost walk away, a careful hope clinging to her as she left to face her future. Alone in the quiet study, Connor finally felt the weight lift from his shoulders. The past, with all its pain and destruction, would not be forgotten, but neither would the strength and resilience that came from surviving it. As the house settled into a new kind of quiet, Connor felt ready for whatever came next. At last, at peace with what was, and what could never be again. Connor gazed out the window, watching his children's laughter drift across the porch as the evening sun slipped below the horizon. For the first time in years, the house felt calm, solid, not because it was free from scars, but because those inside had finally embraced the truth, no matter how difficult it had been to reach. He closed the asset recovery reports, allowing himself a small, satisfied breath. He had survived the devastation, navigated the storm, and reclaimed a sense of peace not just for himself, but for Emma and Tyler. The past would always be a part of their story, but it no longer had the power to overshadow everything still to come. Connor knew there would be new challenges in the months and years ahead, but he felt ready. His family's foundation, rebuilt on honesty and resilience, was stronger for what they had endured. He had chosen peace over bitterness, hope over obsession, and family over vengeance. The wolf at last had found something even more precious than victory, the chance to begin again. Next time. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow through the windows as Connor stepped onto the porch to join Emma and Tyler, the laughter of his children blending with the peaceful sounds of the evening. The house, once shadowed by secrets and betrayal, now felt alive with hope and renewal. Inside, the memories of pain and loss were no longer chains holding him back. They were hard-won lessons, reminders of what truly mattered. Connor embraced his children, grateful for the bond they'd managed to reclaim despite everything. Together, they shared a meal, knowing the past would always linger, but the future was theirs to shape. The wolf had come home, not to stalk or to hunt, but to protect, to love, and to finally rest.